Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be here with you again, and today's story time is gonna be intense. But before we start, I just want to remind you, if you're new here, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos every single Tuesday. No, it's not Tuesday, that's in my Spanish channel. Every single Thursday. And of course, don't forget to like this video if you like it, or if you want to support me, or both. Hopefully both. So I'm gonna get my water bottle because this is gonna be a long story time. And I suggest you get a tea or something to drink or chips or something, because again, this is gonna be a long story time. I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible, but oh god, you're not ready for what you're about to hear. I don't think I said it, but my name is Valentina, and today we have a story time again, which I love. I love story times. So today, I wish I didn't have to tell you this story. I wish I didn't have to go through this, but I had. And I think you should all learn from my experience so you don't have to suffer as much. Okay, so everything starts about 2 years ago. I was living in LA, I was living in Hollywood, I hated my apartment, I hated pretty much everything about my living situation in that moment. And my leasing was about to expire and I didn't want to keep living with my current roommates. But also, my salary didn't allow me to live by myself. It still doesn't, especially because LA is a really expensive city. So I was looking for a roommate, but I didn't want to go through looking for a roommate on Facebook, which I did before, and I can tell you that story another time. And I was like, I don't know what to do because I still need to find someone to live with. And none of my friends were looking for an apartment at the moment. So my boyfriend tells me that his friend's girlfriend is looking for a roommate in an apartment in an area I really liked. And it was so cheap. When I'm telling you cheap, it was actually really expensive, but it was cheap for LA standards. I was paying about $800 for a room and a bathroom, which you usually don't get if you have roommates. You have to share a bathroom, but I would get my own bedroom and my own bathroom for $800 in a good area in LA. If you know LA, you know this is a very good price. And I really liked this girl, and she was so nice and she was so sweet, and I was really excited to move in with her. So when I signed the lease, like, I never had to meet the landlord because this girl, my new roommate, had all the communications, was handling all of the communications with her. And I was like, okay, that's fine, I don't care. I never thought you could have a horrible landlord. But you do. So here's the thing. After about 3 weeks of living with my new lovely roommate, she gets a job in New York. And I freaked out because I didn't know what to do. But I found that one of my friends from UCLA was also looking for a new place. And this was a good area for her because she was working in the same area. And she moves in with me. And I was like, yay, this is gonna be perfect. That's what we thought. So she moves in, and the landlord starts getting a little bit annoyed by she moving in because I had just moved in the previous month, and now she would have to like change the leasing to someone else again. Like, she didn't like all these people moving in and out, especially because if we were still in the same lease, she couldn't raise the price of the apartment. Also, she was Peruvian, which means she spoke Spanish a lot better than she spoke English, just like me. And she had a really thick accent, just like me. And my roommate was Colombian, so we all spoke Spanish. And sometimes we needed to communicate with her, and she was like, no, I don't want to speak Spanish because this is just business and we have to speak English. And we were like, we all speak Spanish. Can we just like make this easier for everyone? But she wouldn't. She was just annoyed. She didn't want to help. She didn't want to collaborate. So we're like, okay, whatever. 2 weeks after that happened, I started getting this little cute bites all over my body. And I realized when I look at my mattress and everything and like my carpet that there were bugs. They were not bed bugs, they were fleas. I'd never seen a flea before in my life because I don't think we have fleas in Venezuela. We probably do, but like, I've never seen a flea. And I freaked out. And I tell her like, hey, I just moved in, there are fleas. Like, can you spray something, send someone? And she's like, no, you brought the fleas with your dog. And I'm like, I don't have a dog. And she's like, yeah, but your friend for sure has a dog. And I'm like, no one has a dog. My boyfriend doesn't have a dog, my brother doesn't have a dog, my sister doesn't have a dog, and I don't see much people here. Like, I don't have any friends, basically. But she was convinced that it was my dog that was just spreading the fleas in the apartment. So she didn't want to help. So I had to get rid of the fleas on my own, which was really annoying, and well, whatever, I did after like 2 months of fighting with stupid fleas, and it was just so bad. So bad. I hated it. And we're like, okay, whatever, she's just not a great landlord, but she's like, whatever. It's like, you know, she didn't want to help with the fleas. That's no big deal, right? No. Then one day, like, I think this was even before the fleas. I don't remember the exact timeline at this point, but one day I get a call. I'm at work and I get a call from my roommate like, hey, the apartment is flooded. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, this, I would say tube, I don't know the word, like under our sink in the kitchen is leaking water, like hot water, and it won't stop. I go back to the apartment, try to deal with it with my roommate, and we called the landlord. And she's like, well, you broke something. I'm like, oh, we didn't break anything. Like, we didn't touch it. She got to the apartment and it was like that. The landlord was like, no, you broke it. It's your fault. So she finally comes to the apartment to stop the leak. It was like so much water. And so she comes and she's like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know why this happened. You probably put something in the sink and make it stuck and it exploded. And we're like, what? So after that same day, she starts like, yeah, and you know, maybe you brought friends for dinner and someone opened a can of beer and the little thing on the top that you open it with, you threw it through the sink and it got stuck there, and that's what happened. She was actually trying to blame it on us, and we're like, we haven't brought friends here, like we haven't had any parties. And she's like, well, maybe you forgot, but I'm sure like your drunk friends put that in. We were like, we don't have drunk friends, like what's wrong with you? We were like, okay, it was just shocking. And then she goes like, yeah, and you can't have a TV, because if you have a TV and you connect it, you're gonna collapse the whole building electric system. And we're like, oh my god, what's wrong with this lady? So I am so upset, but at the same time I couldn't say anything because I don't like fighting with people. And I was like, okay, this is just weird. We can't have a TV. We can't bring our drunk friends to put the beer thing on the sink, like, which we didn't, but whatever. She was like, you can do this, you can't do that, and this is all happening because you're so irresponsible. And we were like, no, we're not. Then another day she comes, I don't know why, to tell me that my plants that were cactus and they were like this big and they were in the little pots were probably leaking water from when I watered them every 3 weeks, and they could flood again the apartment. I'm not even kidding. She said that. I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you can't have your cactus here because it's dangerous. I was like, they're inside of my kitchen. And she's like, well, yeah, you can flood the kitchen again. And I was like, after that, not the oven, how do you call that? The stove. So the stove wasn't working. We had 4 different stoves, I guess, like 4 different burners. I don't know the name, you know, that 4 things on the stove, and only one of them will work. And it was so, like, the fire was like so tiny, like it would take us 45 minutes to boil water. 45 minutes! And so we call her because we read the lease, and it was like they have to take care of the oven and the stoves because they're their responsibility, versus like the fridge was ours, microwave was ours, but the oven and the stoves were the apartment. So if they were not working, which they were not since I moved in, but apparently my ex-roommate, the really sweet girl that moved to New York, she talked to my landlord several times about how it was not working, and she would just ignore her. So I was like, hey, this is not working. She's like, well, you probably ruined it. Of course it was our fault again. So I'm like, okay, can you just come and fix this and like replace it? And she's like, no, you just need to clean it because you hadn't cleaned it. And we're like, she comes and she's like, well, I don't understand, like, what's the problem? And we're like, well, it won't Actually, let me look for my laptop and read the emails because I sent her so many emails. So we tell her like, okay, this is not working, and sometimes we want to cook like different things, like my roommate's cooking something and I'm cooking something else, and we only have one stove and it's really annoying, and she's like, well, you should eat the same thing. My roommate and I would just look at each other like, is this for real? Is there a camera somewhere, like a hidden camera? Like, is this a TV show? Because this sounds like a joke. It's just like, yeah, you should cook the same thing. And anyway, I don't know why you need the stove if you have a microwave that you could cook in. I literally tell her like, well, if I want to make a pasta, I want to make my pasta in my stove. I don't even know why I was explaining myself to her of why I needed a stove that worked. And she's like, well, yeah, everyone now cooks in the microwave. No one uses their stove, so you should cook in the microwave. Or just cook the same meal, both of you, and you eat the same thing, so you don't need all the stoves. Let me look for the email. I'm not gonna show you her name, but there's so many emails. First there's like, okay, apartment, rent, apartment, stove. Okay, here it is. Okay, the thing is, also, when I would call her, she would always ignore my calls and she would only pick up the phone for my roommate. So obviously, she disliked me more because I would say things to her. Okay, so with the stove, she wouldn't want to help us, and now I'm remembering that from my emails. And I told her about the stove and she wouldn't respond to my emails. She would just call my roommate back so we wouldn't have evidence of whatever crazy things she was saying. So here I told her on November 1st, 2018. Hello, beep. In the first place, we want to kindly inform you that my roommate and I would prefer to maintain all communications via email so there are no miscommunications. After saying that, we want to let you know that I told Mara about what the person you brought today said, that the stove is not receiving enough gas, so he has to change the piece. Also, we don't agree with the solution you suggested of cooking in the microwave instead of using the stove because that's what everyone does now. Or the one you suggested to her this morning of eating the same food so we don't have to use the stove burners at the same time. As the lease states, the stove and oven are part of the owner's personal property. And since it hasn't worked properly since we moved in, even since the previous renter was living in the apartment, it's the owner's responsibility to fix the problem. As the landlord-tenant law in California and the leasing says, we're not economically responsible for damages that we did not cause, negligence or misuse. Also, an appliance that is not properly working falls in the unhabitability, okay, read the word here, category. And she's like, oh, sorry, like it was a joke about you cooking in the microwave, which was obviously not. Like, I can tell you, it was not a joke. After all this, they replaced the stove and everything and whatever. Then once she tells me my car, a Corolla, was too big for the parking spot, which was not, because right next to me, I had an SUV. But she was telling me that my car was just too big and I should have a smaller car. She wanted me to replace my car. Okay, let's just keep going. We were always on time with payment, like literally every 31st or 30th in the month, we would leave the check in her door, like not her door, but like the door where we would leave the checks because she wouldn't receive transfers or anything, but whatever. We do everything on time. We're so quiet. Actually, I live by myself most of the time because my roommate, after like 2 months of living together, basically moved in with her boyfriend but was still paying the apartment, which I'm so grateful for. My boyfriend would never stay with me because he hated my apartment because it was empty. Like, I didn't have a couch, I didn't have a TV. Well, I did have a TV, but that, by the way, didn't make the whole electric system explode. But basically no one would come and visit. Like, I would go places to see my family, my boyfriend, my friends, but I would never bring anyone. I would never stay late. I was never loud. I can't even tell you, like, this lady was just crazy. After all this happened, almost a year after, in May 2019, we decided to move out. My roommate was officially moving in with her boyfriend and I was coming back to Venezuela. So we started moving out. We let her know, and obviously she was fine with it. She would show the apartment to people while we were there. She would just like, she wouldn't knock like it, which is normal, but she wouldn't knock on the door. She would just get in with people, and we're like, what's wrong with you? You have to ask for permission. We still live here. What if I'm naked in my apartment? Like, what if I don't know, but why are you opening the door to my apartment like that? We start moving out. I start selling all of my stuff and bringing some other to my sister's house. One day, someone else, which was not us, lifts a mattress in front of the building, and like the trash people would pick it up and charge her more for picking up the mattress, which does happen. But she wants to charge us $100 and something for a mattress that was not ours. And at this point, I'm even tired of telling this story. I'm like, yeah, again, another stupid thing. So she wants to make us pay for this, and we're like, no way. It couldn't be my mattress, and she knew that, so she was thinking it was my roommate's, but my roommate literally returned her mattress to IKEA, and she had the receipt. She was like, well, what am I gonna do? Like, someone has to pay for this. And we're like, well, it was not us. Like, we won't pay for that. Obviously, the deposit, she didn't give it completely back to us. You know, of course, she was gonna take money from us. But before this happens, before we moved out and we are happy people again, you won't believe this. I go downstairs one morning, I see my car has a little scratch, and I'm like, oh crap. Like, at that point I didn't have the Corolla anymore. I had a Nissan Versa, but it was rented. I'm worried because, you know, I have to pay for this, because if I scratch the car, well, maybe the insurance will cover it, but I don't know. And then I look a little further, and the door on the right side of the car says, bitch. And I look a little further, and the other door on the same side of the car says, bitch. Someone keyed my car. And I was like, okay, could be many people. I have many suspects at the beginning. I would say, well, it was maybe someone that doesn't like me in the building, which makes no sense because I didn't know anyone. Maybe it was the homeless man that would live next to my car, because yes, there was a homeless man living literally next to my car, and my car was parked next to the trash can of the building. Homeless people is a really big and concerning issue in LA, and it is so sad and heartbreaking. I said, well, maybe he was mad at me and he keyed my car. But then I was like, I don't think he wouldn't waste his time like that. And then I'm like, oh, and then I go like, what if it was the landlord? And I start telling my problem to everyone, my roommate, my boyfriend, my family, my co-workers, and they all agreed that it was the landlord. Well, my boyfriend was like, I don't know. At the beginning, he was like, I just like, it's weird. Until I realized there's a camera on the building. And I asked the landlord for the camera record so I can send it to the police because someone keyed my car. And her answer is, that's a fake camera. I can't give you the tapes because that camera doesn't have any recordings because it is a fake camera. What? Like, that's, I don't think that's legal to have a security camera that it's not real, so you're not getting protected at all. It's like, why do you have it there? Like, why is it fake? Is it even legal that you have a fake camera? I don't know. And she goes like, maybe you did something to someone. Like, you probably did something. So just think about who you did something to. I tell my boyfriend everything that's happening, and he helps me look, and he tells me like, that's not a fake camera. Like, that's a real camera. She just doesn't want to give you the evidence. So obviously, it was her. She keyed my car. My landlord keyed my car. That was rented. And that's another story, but I had to pay like $1,000 for that because the insurance of the car was also a scam. One of the days we were just picking up stuff. I was with my boyfriend and my roommate, and she comes in to show the apartment to some people, and she literally makes fun of me for having my car keyed. I don't think there's much more to say. Do you understand the type of landlord I had? You probably don't know me that much, but I hate fighting. 90% of the time, if I get a bad service, or someone responds in a bad way, or someone is a little moody or something, I won't say anything. I'll just stay quiet, which I know is wrong, because because I should fight for things that are right. But I would rather stay quiet and not fight just to avoid conflict. But to this lady, it was thing after thing after thing after thing that I had to say something at some point. And that's what I get for saying something. I got my car keyed. So we finally move out. We ask for our deposit. And she tells me she won't give it to us because my ex-roommate should give me my deposit. Which obviously she's like, no, no, the landlord has to give it to you. But she's like, no, I'm not gonna give you anything. She ended up giving us, again, just a little bit back. Then, actually, I'm remembering, we tell her, okay, we're gonna move out in June. And she's like, okay, and we're like, well, by the end of June. And she's like, well, I think I have someone that wants to move in earlier, so if you could move out earlier, that would be great. My response to her was like, okay, fine. If you give us back half of the monthly rent, or like, so we just paid half of it, we can leave on the 15th. Like, that's completely fine. That works for us. I will leave with my sister. Like, it doesn't matter. It's okay. And she's like, well, no, you have to pay fully. And you move out in the 15th, and if I get someone to move in, yes, I'll give you back half the rent, but if we don't, you have to pay for it. And we're like, then no, we're gonna stay until the end of the month. Like, what's wrong with you? And honestly, I am sure I'm forgetting like 1,000 things. I'm sure I'm not telling you everything that happened because I'm sure my brain has blocked most of it. And it was just such a traumatizing experience. I'm sorry for all the gelling. I just get really upset about it. It's been over a year and I'm still like, what's wrong with this lady? She was just the worst landlord in the world. She wouldn't take care of the building at all. The building was so bad. They wouldn't clean, like our windows outside were so dirty, and she's like, yeah, it's because we only clean once a year. We lived there for a year and they never cleaned the windows. Sometimes we would walk in the hallway of the building and there was like dog poop in the middle of the hallway, and like no one would clean it for weeks. The dryer machine wouldn't dry, like such bad maintenance. She was a terrible landlord, and she was just not the landlord, she was the owner of the building. Guys, if you're gonna rent in LA or in any other place, just make sure the person in charge of your apartment is at least, I don't want to say nice, like it doesn't matter if it's nice or not, like that's great, but like that's not important, but make sure it's a reasonable person. This was a nightmare. That's the story time of today. It was just traumatizing, but guys, again, just make sure you're really picky with the place you live in. Sometimes it's just better to pay a little more and to have no, or at least not so many issues with the apartment and the landlord. That's the story time of today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up because I deserve it after all this tragedy that I learned a lot from. And hopefully you guys learned from it too, because I don't want this happening to any of you. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for many more story times of many other very random things that had happened in my life. I don't know why I attract these things, which is great. Every time something bad happens to me, I'm like, this is a story time. That's how I try to take it now. It's like, well, whatever. Another story time because these things keep happening. Please don't forget to subscribe and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.